All right, welcome into the Knoll Road as the Steelers have just signaled that while you might not think they have enough players to believe they're all in yet, that could very well change soon. A new era of Steelers football is here, and they are here to strike while the iron is hot, even if the Terry McLaurin rumor is, in fact, dead on arrival. We'll discuss what's next and what Plan B is, all right? We'll look at the top plays from the weekend of Steelers practice, who's winning 7 shots, and DK Metcalf spoke his mind about the Steelers defense. What did he have to say? Here we go.
To the corner of the end zone. Oh, for a touchdown!
All right, welcome in. I'm Gavin, Dawson, 25-year sports radio vet, and with me, as always, is my favorite football Neanderthal, Newbear, Lesniewski, right down the street from where Bill Cowher grew up. How the hell you doing tonight, buddy?
Just delightful. I'm living in this era of, post-Ben malaise. It's fascinating to now see this team being just the ultimate craze when it comes to what the kids do these days.
It is so much fun, man. The Knoll Road brought to you by BetOnline. Go to theknollroad.com. Actually, click the sign-up banner for up to $250 in bonus bets, fastest deposits and withdrawals in the game. The thing I love about this story here, Newbear, is just that it proves that our report that the Steelers were definitely interested in Terry McLaurin from Tuesday night was accurate, so pat on our backs, but it's not all about us, is it? No, it's about these Pittsburgh Steelers. So it shows that, they know their wide receiver room is not enough yet.
Yet being the key word. I mean, they really, really, really like Robert Woods, and there's a lot to like about a professional wide receiver who's now leading the charge to find wide receiver 2 in that room. They also,
they might have like 4 number 3s.
And that's the thing about, the Roman Wilson versus Calvin Austin III debate is one of the best going right now. As we talk about the preseason, a lot of teams rest their starters. Some teams like the Bengals and others in the Detroit Lions, they've said they're going to play their starters more than they normally would. And, normally the preseason is a time where you kind of relax, you kind of rest, you kind of ramp up. And you're excited that football is back, and you're excited to see the guys, who may be undrafted or guys who are from your school or one of your favorite schools, or just who maybe might become a gunner or some other thing that makes a play, somewhere along the way. But the Pittsburgh Steelers, that whole wide receiver room after DK Metcalf is potentially up for grabs, which means these guys better be making plays as we go through the next few weeks.
Yeah, I would definitely feel pressure, because that trade rumor came off as, very legit. Our guy Chris Halleck with the report here from I'll bring it up right there. There it is. Okay, he's and he's going to join us on the show this week, so we'll get an update, and hopefully, maybe things have changed again by then. But as of this weekend, he's saying the team does not expect to be able to get him. To me, it sounds like they called and they offered something, but Washington said no. But there's another layer of the reporting to it that gets really interesting if I scroll down here and I can find it. Basically saying McLaurin wants to be a true number 1 where he goes. And I guess that was part of the no. It's like, well, no, actually that's weird. If true, I would say that's wild that he would turn down a chance to play with these Steelers right now, buddy.
Yeah, because pick a team. Like I was thinking about, Tennessee and Calvin Ridley as a completely random example where you have an exciting young rookie quarterback and then one good wide receiver and then veterans and other guys. I mean, you could say the same thing about Tyler Lockett that you could say about Robert Woods. And if they're going to pay him what he wants to be, which is DK Metcalf, Mount Rushmore of wide receiver money, then you would think that would be the thing. The challenging part of this for me about him wanting to be wide receiver 1 and why I don't buy this is that he is wide receiver 1 in Washington, and they apparently don't want to pay the man. And in addition to that, he's in a CeeDee Lamb pre-George Pickens thing where it's clog and cover. And even in a year where he comes in near the top of the NFL in touchdowns with a career high 13 after averaging 5 over the first half decade in the league. He still didn't top 1,100 yards. And for all of his consistency, he's yet to have that put my name in Canton type of year where you would just be like, well, then why are we even having this conversation? So
I think that's a good point. You know what it kind of sounds like is we need a reason to say that this trade isn't going to happen without saying one side was too committed to it. You know, it's a good way to say probably not going to happen.
I like the idea that Washington is dug in, because if you're the Commanders and you went to the NFC Championship game last year and this guy caught a touchdown in every single game, and like Kyle Brandt said earlier today, he is Jaden Daniels' favorite toy. The one thing about Jaden Daniels you got to remember is that his favorite toy is whoever's open. This is virtual reality quarterback. This is the next gen guy. This is the one. It's not Mahomes. This is the guy with all the studios. This is the guy with the systems and the GoPros and all the things out there on the field that is going to become the model for quarterbacks going forward. And when you go back to Arizona State, Brandon Ayuk doubled his production when Jaden Daniels stepped on the field as a freshman, hashtag Pac-12 after dark. And you look at Brian Thomas, top 5 pick, arguably the number 1 wide receiver, the young receiver coming for everything, going to win fantasy leagues. Same way. He was a guy, even after, Neighbors and, Booty and everyone at LSU, Brian Thomas doubled and even tripled, if you look at it from year to year, his production under Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels, if you're open, he's going to get you the ball.
Yeah. I think your dead ball's on right. I mean, he's one of the most exciting young quarterbacks. It'd be really interesting to see if he can take that second step. And I think that's a really important part of the evaluation, because Washington does not want to get rid of a guy who might be year 2 MVP in Washington and, helping Jaden Daniels, be that good. I think, for them, they're looking at this like, we just don't want to get rid of this guy. So no matter what you offer us, a fair value might be a 3rd round pick, but even a 1st round pick seems like it's not worth it to Washington right now, because McLaurin walks out that door. You kind of got to go back to square one when it comes to, finding a wide receiver. And it could take them a long time to find one as good as McLaurin. So the other thing that this really sounds to me like, Newbear, is this is McLaurin wanting to be paid like a number 1 wide receiver. I think that's what this comes down to. There's no way his competes are so bad that he just wants to go somewhere that he's going to be a clear number 1, and he doesn't care win, lose, draw, about the results and about how good of a football team he is. So, I think the number is somewhere approaching $35 million, and maybe the Steelers aren't willing to go to that level to get him.
Yeah.
And maybe they're not willing to sweeten the pot in the trade.
It's funny, though, because this is a guy who in a 16-game season, right? He gets that 17th game, and people talk about how, 1,000-yard seasons for running backs and wide receivers don't mean what they did once upon a time. We're not talking about the 14-game season. We're talking about the 16-game season. Terry McLaurin was a 66.5 yards per game guy last year. He barely got to 1,000 yards in the old school traditional 16-game season that we grew up with. And when you look at a wide receiver 1 who absolutely caught a touchdown pass in every playoff game, who absolutely is a 10, 12 target guy when it matters most, he's also a guy who disappeared at moments, who had 2 and 1 target and catch games, 10 and 19-yard catch games as recently as 2024.
So it's a tough evaluation.
It is, and some of that's mitigated by the fact that he didn't have a whole lot of help. I mean, you're talking about Zach Ertz as the number 2 receiver in Washington. They want to run the ball, ground and pound, and then let Jalen Daniels. Jaden Daniels did his thing. I mean, and let's not forget that we're talking about a guy who's going to take off. I mean, he's basically like, people want to compare him so much to Lamar Jackson because of the run pass element. He's obviously a more advanced passer at this stage in his career that Lamar Jackson was. But I mean, we're talking about a guy who's going to take off 10 or 12 times a game too. I mean, he's going to go off script. And if Terry McLaurin is in a clock and cover situation and Jaden Daniels can go get you 10 or 12, you just keep the chains moving and keep it moving in general. I just think back to, this is a guy 20 yards a catch, at Ohio State, but a guy who caught 35 balls in his best year in college falls to the 3rd round for all the different types of reasons that we're talking about now. The same reason he falls to the 3rd round coming out is the same reason we're concerned about what we might have to get up to get him.
All right. Speaking of Steeler wide receiver targets. Let's go to the next layer on the conversation. Again, from Chris Halleck, who's doing a heck of a job on this story. Other than this pop-up ad sitting here in front of me. Okay, there we go. Steelers aren't pursuing Davis and other wide receivers. Okay, this is a follow-up to what we've been talking about over the weekend. Like, are you going after McLaurin? Okay, so this must mean that you're going to want to really seriously add a second wide receiver to the mix, right? Well, not so fast, my friend. Apparently they don't like any of the free agent targets out there. So the way that they're looking at improving, this is at least my takeaway from the article, the way they're looking at improving wide receiver 2 is only in the trade market, and just not a lot of guys are available as we get ready for week 1, maybe as early October, or, week 6, week 7, you might be able to get some trade targets established. But I mean, with the expanding wild card situation even more, it's hard for teams to feel out of the wild card race by the NFL trade deadline, even though they pushed it back. But anyway, not interested in Gabe Davis, even though they had him in for an offseason workout. His knee's a little wonky. And then apparently not interested in Amari Cooper and Keenan Allen either. And they're probably doing the right thing there. I mean, I'm not sure they would supplant the players that are already on the roster.
Can we just the knee might be a little wonky. How about the 50% catch rate? Not success rate, catch rate. I mean, this is a guy who's, what did they call Eldon Campbell? He was the enigmatic Eldon Campbell, going back into our youth as basketball fans. I mean, he is a guy that everyone wants to be a guy who makes that next step, and he's just never been able to do it, despite catching balls from, some pretty damn good quarterbacks. And when you go through the machinations of adding guys to a team, you can say maybe Keenan Allen is waiting for someone to go down so he can get paid what he wants to not just sit around. Amari Cooper the same way, also a knee concern. Keenan Allen slowing down. As you go through the best story, Tyler Boyd, we've talked about that. And then the list gets real short, real slow, and real old, real fast. It's not even about the dollars and cents of it. It's about Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin III. It's about Rock Taylor. I know you got a whole bunch of stuff queued up, and I can't wait to get into it.
Oh, yeah, we got top plays from practice coming up shortly. I didn't think you were done with your thought there, Newbear.
Oh, you know what? You have just got me so wound up where I know you've got a bunch of stuff queued up, and I have a lot of things to say about a lot of things, and I want to be respectful and mindful of people's time.
Let's go. Okay, what does Washington's response mean for the chances of adding Terry McLaurin? Like, as you're going through some of the Dan Quinn quotes here, we love Terry. I'm really glad he's here. Hopefully he's out practicing soon. We understand there's a business side of things. He and his reps are working it through. I just kind of stay in that space. We recognize both things are happening, but like I said, I'm really glad he's here. He called it an emotional time. He says it's part of normal business that it's happening around the NFL. It's normal. We understand it, and we just throw our very best practices out on the field. It just does not seem that, Dan Quinn is saying anything along the lines of we're open-minded to trading the guy. So I don't know how this could change. I guess if you want him right now, he's got to get on the field playing under this contract, and Washington's got to start 1-3, and then we can talk about it, right?
Yeah, and there's some of that, and emotional being the key word. And I think we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the emotionality of it relative to the player. Terry McLaurin isn't a kid anymore. This is his year 30 season, his age 30 season. He turns 30 in a couple of weeks, like 3 weeks into the season. He's a 30-year-old man, and that's all everybody wants to talk about. Why aren't we talking about the fact that if he had missed a game as a rookie, he's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many years has he played? That's how many 1,000-yard receiving season he'd had. He's Mike Evans level production consistency. My big thing is when you're sitting there saying, I want to be paid wide receiver 1 money. We're talking about 117 targets in 17 games. We're talking about under 1,100 yards. We're talking about the 13 touchdowns being an abnormality. Everyone is using data against this guy as opposed to celebrating him for what he is, what he's been. And this goes back to college, right? This is a guy who was Mr. Football coming out of high school, has to redshirt at Ohio State. He's a 5-year guy, which you don't see anymore ever, let alone not transferring and all the things now in Saturday world. And then his breakout season is literally 35 catches. He had 11 touchdowns. He caught a touchdown every 3 times he caught the ball. That gets him to the 3rd round. Now he's into a track where if he stays in Washington, he might not make the Hall of Fame, but he makes their Hall of Fame. And now we're looking at this talking about respect. And what he's looking at, if he's on the other side of this conversation looking at Pittsburgh as seriously as we want him here, he's saying this is a team that just looked at TJ Watt and everything he's done and paid the man. Didn't listen to what everyone had to say, paid the guy that's going to get them where they want to go because of what he's done and what he still has left in the tank. Terry McLaurin is looking at this franchise and seeing tradition, seeing excellence, and wanting to be a part of that.
Man, I love that. That's a terrific angle. You know, I think what you got to be looking at with this Steelers team right now is because you have Rodgers, because you have the number one defense, because you have DK Metcalf and these great tight ends, you owe it to yourself. You're only going to have this one opportunity. You know, if it's not Terry McLaurin, who's it going to be? And I would say go to the second rounder, throw in Calvin Austin. You know, there was fun today at Steelers practice, people catching Terry McLaurin fever a little bit. And he wasn't practicing for one reason or another. A number of guys weren't practicing for one reason or another. And I say, yes, sweeten the pot, do what you got to do. You know, give up a piece of the future. Tell Terry McLaurin you'll give him $38 million. You know what I'm saying?
I do. But here's the biggest part of that thing. If it's Calvin Austin or Roman Wilson, what you're doing in that situation is not guessing. You're not saying we're going to play Robert Woods and then hope that in the tiny little amount of attempts that are left based on wanting to be a run-first, tight end-driven team, and oh, by the way, DK Metcalf and his 150 targets, that we're going to hope somehow a third wide receiver emerges and proves to us that he deserves to get paid. In that situation, you're basically saying Robert Woods is going to get hurt or he isn't the guy. So then let's update the depth chart at ourlads.com. Like, all kidding aside, if you move Roman Wilson or Calvin Austin III, let's remember, Calvin Austin Roman Wilson in year 2, that means you have more control. Calvin Austin, if you don't extend him before the season starts, and he blows up, he's going to get paid by you or someone else. If you move him because you believe that his speed changes things and he becomes a piece that gets you Terry McLaurin, do the deal. At the same time, because of the team control, because of more size, because of pedigree and all the other things you could argue for Roman Wilson, do the trade. If you're all in with Aaron Rodgers and you only got him one time, or if you're thinking about how do we get him back for a cameo, the only way to do that is to do everything in your power to put everything in front of him to have no excuses.
Now, for the record, you want to keep Roman Wilson, right?
I love Roman Wilson. We don't even know what this guy is except for Darius Slay bodying him on a comeback route on the sideline where we can't even see who's throwing the ball or what the purpose of that. You know, J.J. Watt talking about, you know, everybody watching practice. You don't know what the period's designed for. You don't know if this is trying to work on us. Dude, Roman Wilson at one time coming out, everybody in the country was in love with him. They just said he's too small or he's too something or he's too whatever. And we didn't even get a chance to prove that as a rookie with the injuries and the doghouse and everything else in between. What I'm saying is if you're not going to let this young man compete, then let him go and get you a guy who's already proven what he is.
Yeah, I'm just saying the guy with the most upside that you'd rather not trade would be Wilson. I think Austin's a nice player, and he might have more upside, but you have a deep threat.
Yeah, and Austin's a guy who, like Darnell Washington, you know, the numbers don't have to be super meaningful, meaning 100 targets or 100 catches to talk about doubling or tripling production. Like if you get 10 targets or 10 catches and then in year 2 you're at 25, like a Darnell Washington, or you're talking about Calvin Austin, who's basically like double those numbers, what are you projecting for him in year 3? Because of DK, because of the tight ends, because of Arthur Smith's scheme. And inside of this scheme, what you have to do is magnify and do everything inside of the way they want to play football games to give yourself the best chance. You talk about EPA all the time. You know, you look at adjusted yards per attempt and all the different advanced metrics. If you put Terry McLaurin opposite DK Metcalf, it's not the same, but it's similar and parallel to George Pickens and DK Metcalf, which we had for like 5 minutes. Right now, Robert Woods, everyone's going to talk about him being older and the tread and the tires. Roman Wilson, unproven. Calvin Austin, small. Terry McLaurin solves all those problems.
Yeah, you don't want to be a team with just one wide receiver. I think it's a fun idea, and if you're managing the salary cap year to year, 2-star wide receivers is tough. It's not sustainable. But when it's time to go, what you do is you pull out the old credit card and you swipe that thing and you buy yourself a bunch of great toys for right now, and you go on a world vacation, and then you worry about it in the years to come. But I just don't think it's realistic against these cover 2 shells that most every quarterback in the NFL is facing, to not expect your passing game to break down. Go ask Terry McLaurin and his 66 yards per game with no counterweight to his, it's easy to key on somebody like that and take him away. Any DC can take away one good wide receiver.
Well, and you talked about the last time we talked, you as the GM might even think about giving up a 1. Let's not forget, you might have as many as 4 threes. And before you get into the machinations of Alex Highsmith or any of the crazy things, because, I mean, let's be honest, there are trades that exist in a world where you're moving a Highsmith and you're moving picks, and all of a sudden you're talking about Micah Parsons and Terry McLaurin wearing black and gold. There's all kinds of crazy stuff on the socials. We're talking about one player. We're talking about one purpose. We're talking about one way to get the guy and what you'd have to give up to get him. And all I'm saying is that you've got 2 guys right now who are slated to be your wide receiver 3 that you hope become wide receiver 2. If you can move one of them with a secondary, tertiary pick that allows you to put a guy on the world stage, you're solving multiple problems at the same time. You're solving the now, and you're already improving the next, because you're removing a part of the equation that you have to judge in 2025.
Go get it done, Steelers. You're only going to have Aaron Rodgers for 1 year, and then it might be back to Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph, and it doesn't matter how many
I can't believe you went there. Quack, quack. But that's the thing, too. Let's not forget. Let's not sleep on this. Let's give one walkaway point, which is, if you've got DK and you've got Terry McLaurin, and let's assume that you're going to give up some kind of capital to get him, which means your intent is to pay the man, then he wants Mount Rushmore money. He wants to be right there with DK. He wants 33, 34, and you do that, right? Now, guess what? Aaron Rodgers walks away and you don't win the Super Bowl. You're looking at Mason Rudolph with those 2 dudes, or Will Howard with those 2 dudes, or 11 other picks to go get the dude to throw to those 2 dudes.
And if you think, man, we need a quarterback, you can flush it. You can trade your star players for draft picks, and so you don't have to feel like we're marrying these guys for the life of their 4-year deal. Maybe you don't like the idea of carrying 2-star wide receivers for the next half decade onto your roster. I get it. Trade one when you're done going for the Super Bowl, or if a great quarterback falls in your lap and you can go back to back with him, or maybe you get a Nick Foles situation with Mason Rudolph balling, who knows? Maybe wide receivers is that damn good.
We got to give a half point on the way to the next topic, being the only reason we're here and we're so fired up is that Omar Khan is not messing around.
That's right. And that's really what the thing to celebrate is that this confirmed call into Washington for Terry McLaurin shows you, while this thing might not be as one of the best rosters in the NFL right now, it's not far off. Add a wide receiver and add a left tackle. Add a left tackle, Omar. Get as aggressive at that as you are at this, and then you could truly have the best. Now, you just had a number 1 wide receiver, could win the Super Bowl. Add a wide receiver and a left tackle, best roster in football.
Well, you got a little bit of beef. You got a little bit of heat in the comments talking about how there's not going to be a stud left tackle available. Terry McLaurin wasn't available 2 days ago. Micah Parsons wasn't available 2 days ago. We weren't joking about Darnell Washington seriously moving to left tackle 2 days ago. Things change fast. And if you do or don't make this move, that doesn't mean you do or don't make other moves. Like, it's all connected, yes, and the salary cap exists, yes, but there's no reason that when the dominoes start falling, if, for example, Tua Tagovailoa went down in Miami, are you seriously telling me they go all in on Zach Wilson, or they don't start looking at fire sale stuff? There are going to be injuries. There are going to be ramifications to this season that impact other teams that could allow you to go. We've been talking about clogging cover on Terry McLaurin in Washington. How about pluck and how about pull from some of these other teams when they start hitting adversity? Omar Khan has showed that he's ready to strike when the fire is the hottest. And if they're willing to wait for Aaron Rodgers, why? because this was the best landing spot for him, and he opens up all these other things. Now he's here. They've started to matriculate. Why would they stop now?
All right, up next on the Knoll Road, let's go to DK Metcalf, NFL Network, talking about this defense.
Because I think they the best defense I've ever seen. And really? Yeah, like there's some dogs everywhere on the field, and I tip my hat to them because they come to work every day, and we don't have any choice but to get better.
So I love that, iron sharpens iron. I totally believe in that. But I mean, just to put that in context, Newbear, he did battle with Seattle against the Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Donald Rams, that were some of the best defenses in the NFL at the start of this decade, close to top 5 defenses, held the Bengals to a field goal in the Super Bowl. And those were some great defenses. And obviously he's had a nice career now, 6 or 7 years in, he's seen a lot of them. I think this defense has the potential to do that when you talk about bringing in Ramsey and Slay. If Slay can stay young at 34 and have, a season like he did earlier in his career and be big play Slay again, I could absolutely see it being one of those defenses.
Well, this is why we're talking about Terry McLaurin, because when you look at this defense, you talk about the star guys, and we all know who they are. Pick your favorite guy, what jersey's in your closet. You probably have all of them. I mean, J.J. Watt, Jesus, T.J. Watt, Cam Hayward. Maybe you got Connors too because you love the brotherly love. Maybe you got Derek's too. But when you're talking about the defense and you trade the Minka in for the Jalen, I will wear the Minka till the day I die, especially the black color rush. But as we go through this, the reason we're talking about Terry McLaurin is what? Depth. If TJ Watt were to go down, you are so confident. Nick Herbig is killing people, and they're so high on Jack Sawyer. And yeah, he's probably winning against 2s and 3s, but they're waiting. They're salivating, drooling for this kid to start going and getting buttered up against the 1s and expecting him, if he gets 10, 12, 15 snaps a game, to go in and make plays. And when you see him on the field, the great picture of him next to T, I mean, he's literally wearing the same stuff. He's got the socks pulled up. He's got the shoes tied tight. He's got the same gloves, the same tape, like everything about this guy says, I want to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. I want to be just like TJ Watt. You do the same thing on offense. That's why we're talking about Terry McLaurin. This defense has so much versatility that for the first time in years, we're talking about TJ Watt bouncing around. Why? Because Jalen Ramsey is bouncing around. Why? Because JPJ and Slay are going to follow 1 and 2, and you're going to let Ramsey play games. This is such a fun thing when Madden does it, because then the kids pay attention and you start talking about, oh, what am I going to do with these guys? And they go into the depth chart and they just make Ramsey the permanent nickel, blitz him every time. They might do something like that against some teams from week to week, and the very next week, he might be playing Ken Griffey Jr. center field. This is going to be so much fun to watch, because from week to week, when we get into the All-22, we're going to have a hell of a time breaking it down.
We are. This is going to be a lot of fun. Cannot wait. A couple of weeks into practice now. Let's start to look at up next on the Knoll Road some of the top storylines and takeaways from practice. I got some video plays. I don't have any video this one, but the talk of the, I'm going to call it 04 personnel. But I was talking with a reporter friend of mine earlier and asking, what do we call this?
0.
Is it 04? Is it odd?
0 empty.
What are we doing here? I guess it ended up being 14 because it was Gainwell who was actually in the game. He was just aligned to the slot. But you're looking at 4 tight ends, and it hit. Okay, and the idea is you make it look so heavy, and then you spread them out, right? The personnel comes in, and it's all, I guess it was in goal line here as a defense. What are you thinking? And then it's like, oh crap, we got a bunch of big guys in space here. This could get ugly. And if you got the personnel to do it, I just love it.
We talk so much about the Caleb can, right? Or kill when the quarterback goes to his earmuffs and you move on to the second play that was called in the huddle. Sometimes you do that by design. Sometimes you only call one play and it's called killer can, and you move to it with tremendous intentionality. And when you do that the most, when you go 6'7", 280 plus, and that's your X, and you're throwing jump balls.
Up next here on the Knoll Road, we're going to jump to this Rock Taylor. Security gets in the way right here. It's crazy how well that walk was timed up to interfere with the one-hander, but you can see clearly what happened. Newbear, hell of a catch. Where does he fit in this big wide receiver picture? Obviously, he wouldn't mind a trade of one of these guys getting out of his way.
Well, this is why you wouldn't entertain McLaurin, and we're idiots for even thinking about McLaurin. Is that the Steelers, as much as any team in the league, go find 3, 4, 5, 6 undrafted free agent guys, and they show up like this, not just in camp, but ultimately they matriculate to Sunday and they make plays. And as we're gonna talk about, it's one thing with Will Howard hitting him and it being a thing. It's a 75-yard touchdowns, and yeah, it's against the backups. And it's when you go through it and you see it, and it's like, oh, that's on air. Or, oh, that's against the backups. Then you go, well, wait a minute now, 6'2", 225. Oh, wait a minute now, 4'49", 4'39. And these guys, they just go find them. And then they put them in positions in one-on-ones. And you go, okay, well, that's one-on-ones. Anybody can win. But then you put them in team and you see them run a route. And it's not just a takeoff. It's Aaron Rodgers giving him a signal, or it's Will Rogers tapping his helmet. And when you look at these guys running by guys, that's one thing. That's speed. Then they jump over dudes. You go, that's one thing. They're not that fast, but they're big. This is one of those guys who has a lot of the traits that this team likes. And right now, he's the talk of the town.
It's a lot of fun when you find a traits guy that hits, dude. It's like, we did it. Richard Sherman, something like that. Up next here on the Knoll Road.
Hey, before you skip ahead, just we're reluctant to say this because of how things ended. But of all the guys that they found, let's not forget that Antonio Brown was 6th round.
Yeah, that's an incredible find. This, speaking of one-handers and speaking of measurables, freaking DK Metcalf, look at that, dude.
Yeah.
Unit.
Yeah.
So
I always talk about the one where he's like practicing in the summer and it literally looks like a green screen behind him. And then you see stuff like this and it's like, okay, well, who went into Photoshop and edited it? And it's just not. He is built different.
Okay, speaking of built different, this picture here is crazy. I first saw it on mobile. Let me switch it. And then they're like, there's a football in his hand. What would they say right here? Making it look easy. And then somebody commented that there was actually a football in his hand. So I had to zoom in on it here with my old man sight. And I was like, holy crap, there's an actual football. His hands are almost totally covering it up, bro. What size are those hands?
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm lost in the fact that this literally looks like the same exact angle, the same exact area of the catch, right? Dwight Clark, Joe Montana, ring any bells, the greatest catch of all time. What's just beyond impressive is that, I've been on the field next to this dude and he just makes you feel like a tiny human. And then you watch him, you go, okay, well, I'm not an NFL player and I'm, 25 years past being a college guy. And then you see him next to other NFL dudes, other linemen, and he makes them look like tiny humans. I mean, he is just, when you go through the process of evaluating people, he's one of the most difficult evals because of things that we've talked about, Brock Bowers and the way that they did things at Georgia. But I mean, these are 11-inch hands, 6'7", 280, and he can just move like that.
Wow. Yeah. You got to figure out a way to get this, practice up or get it proficient enough that you can unleash it during the season, because it's just unfair. Like
once the corner try to jam him, the corner tries to jam him. Watch it. He tries. He gives it like swim move. I mean, come on, dude.
You know what's crazy is that he didn't even bully him there. He kind of steps back and beats him horizontally.
Yeah, there's a ton of finesse, and I'll say this as long as you'll let me talk right now and forever, is that there's way more athleticism in this dude's bag than anybody wants to give him credit for, because he's so damn big and he's such a devastating. It'd be one thing if he was like that big and he was just kind of like a namby-pamby, I guess I'll block because I'm in the way. He's a devastating blocker in the run game. And then to be able to come across, and this is what I'm the most excited to see, is, you talk about Jonnu Smith and you talk about Kyle Pitts, you talk about some of the other tight ends Arthur Smith has had in different sets. He's never, we're talking about Rob Gronkowski. He's bigger, way bigger than Rob Gronkowski. Not as athletic, not as natural of a catcher. Rob Gronkowski is the greatest tight end ever play the game, also a Pittsburgh guy. So don't ever think that I'm sleeping on my Polish cousin. But when you look at what Darnell Washington can do, I'm excited to see him line up like we're talking about in the 04 stuff and have him come across and flex out, because what that would mean is you would be showing off because Caleb Johnson's already punched one in.
All right, up next here on the Knoll Road, here's a play for the Will Howard truthers. This to the tight end. Bolsh. Nice little pass there, and he's had some nice highlights here. Cannot wait till the preseason starts and we get to see if the low 1% probability of him growing into an NFL starter comes true. And I guess eat crow in the YouTube comments. I mean, there's some legitimate stuff to call me out for, but trust me, my pessimism about Will Howard's ceiling is not one of them.
Yeah, you're a big poker guy, and so you read the cards and you read the table, you play the math, you play the person. You like the person, you just hate the math. And when you look at the math and you strip it down and you take a step back, it's literally the intersection of Ben Roethlisberger and Josh Allen. It's the same damn.
How?
What do you mean? 6'4", 236, 475. The numbers are exactly the same.
Quarterbacking is not dimension related at all. You have to be a higher than 6'2", most likely.
Yeah, 6'4".
And you have to be able to throw it pretty good.
He's got a real nice over-the-top throwing motion.
The rest of quarterbacking takes place between the ears.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter how big you are, how strong you are.
Your guy, Brian Broaddus in the G-Bag Nation, has even said that Will Howard impressed going from Kansas State, where everyone thought he was just a guy and maybe more of an athlete than a quarterback. And then he balled at Ohio State. Now, the one thing about Ohio State is you got dudes running wide open, and you got better dudes than the other team, and you got a scheme. And then you get into the playoff and you watch him make throws. And here's the biggest thing about this kid. The moment isn't too big for him. And it's not just the bloggers and the tweeters talking about how he's 86% with 13 tutties and no interceptions and 4 rushing touchdowns. The stats are beyond superfluous. They're ridiculous in this part of the season. But what's so great about this is that there are so many people who are on the Will Howard train. They're chronicling every rep. And when he does make a mistake, they'll be the first one to jump on it and talk about why he hasn't done it yet.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I'm rooting for the guy. You know, I think it's a great story on him.
Wouldn't it be something if in the Arch, quote unquote, sweepstakes, the Arch Manning sweepstakes, or the Sellers or Lagway or Nuss, wouldn't it be something if they found their guy in the 6th round and he just happens to be the same size with the same 40 time as Ben Roethlisberger?
It happens. You know, there's what do you think? 4 or 5 quarterbacks taken in the 6th round every year. And like 30 years ago, Tom Brady happened. So it's bound to happen, you know, one in the next 256th round picks or so.
And I'm not trying to back you into a place where you have to defend this thing where you're just doing what the math does. It's a cool thing. And if we're going to talk about Latrobe, and we're going to do Friday Nights Under the Lights, and we're going to talk about how the Steelers do business and why you are a Steelers fan, why you root for the Steelers, and how Jack Sawyer is a Steelers guy. Will Howard is a Steelers quarterback. And if it hits, every little kid in town will be wearing that jersey.
Indeed, it'll be quite a scene. I mean, you see it quite often around the NFL where non-first round quarterbacks end up being the franchise quarterback, and if you can make that work, it's amazing. You know, it's a massive blessing for the organization. I would say, though, the trap is what ends up happening too often is these players are flawed, but they can manage to play well enough to make you a playoff team, and then you're stuck because you have a guy that's clearly not a GOAT candidate, not an all-pro, a sometime Pro Bowler, and I guess you could win with him. And he's, you know, he had a big statistical season, so he wants top 10 quarterback money. What do you do then?
Well, what we're going to do on the road, the Knoll Road, if you will, to finding out is enjoy every second of the rise because he's being mentored by Big Ben. He's being tutored by Aaron Rodgers. And oh, by the way, the guy in between these guys is the best QB2 in the whole damn league.
That's right. They're in a great quarterback situation right now. NFL.com's Bucky Brooks is up next here on the Knoll Road. Says, don't forget about the Steelers. Says many are dismissing them, and they haven't won a playoff game since 2016. But the defense in Rodgers' fourth quarter magic gives them a chance to be great in one-score games. Says Rodgers will give them more explosives than at any time since Ben's retirement. And says the offensive line is going to benefit greatly from Rodgers avoiding sacks and getting them into the ideal plays. It's a pretty strong take here from Bucky Brooks. I'll buy it. Sounds good to me.
Well, the thing that's so interesting about this is before Rodgers went L2, sprint around left end. Let me show some escapability and show the old man still got a thing or two. If he has the ability to move just in the pocket to extend plays, I'm not even talking about going and getting your first down on 3rd and 7. If he can just be a reasonable facsimile of Aaron Rodgers of yore, this is a different deal than we've seen since, the middle end of Ben's prime, because you just have a guy, like you said, the most important thing is he's going to get you in the right play. And that might mean on 2nd and 7, giving it to Caleb Johnson for 3 to put you in 3rd and 4, as opposed to being in 2nd and 7 and taking a sack and puts you in 3rd and long, where everything just kind of becomes impossible. And in the course of the past few years, we maybe would have punted on 3rd down and been better for it. And then, oh, by the way, if he is wrong, or the defense is just getting paid to and they win on 2nd and 7 and still get that negative yardage play, and they stuff Caleb Johnson or get a sack because you don't check to a little handoff, he's Aaron Rodgers, and he's going to zip one in there for 13, 15, 17, or, oh, by the way, just put one over the top because DK Metcalf is a human triangle button. The thing that this guy does, if he's really, really, really healthy, and he can really, really, really do 85, like you always say after the Achilles, 85% of the things, is he gives you the ability to flip the field in literally any situation.
I think just looking at the AFC, though, everybody has a weakness that's in front of them, and you could argue that they've made incremental steps with the moves they've made so far, some pretty big jumps at quarterback and cornerback. Have they closed the gap? You could argue that it's happened already, and what we're about to see starting week 1 will start to reveal that. But if you can run on the Bills, you can beat them. Same thing against the Ravens. And the Chiefs have stripped down their offense, and they're trying to do this weird science experiment where they're going to try to win the championship every year while never going all in enough to give Patrick Mahomes guaranteed weapons anymore. Like, Mahomes is trying to manufacture offense. Travis Kelce is old. And obviously I don't think the Bengals are a factor at freaking all, because they can't stop anybody and they can't run it well. I think Burrow's going to score a lot of points, but that's not a winning formula if you ask me. So why not the Steelers now? Then just to bring it back full circle, you add McLaurin. I think you're clearly the best.
Well, you brought up the Bengals and the Steelers, which is two teams that ESPN has in the top 10, and a lot of people, just because of Burrow and because of what that offense is going to do. If you go Hendrickson gets signed and Stewart finally signs, hey, guess what? The college guy's going pro. He's not going back to college. And they got 2 dudes hunting, and now Hendrickson is even somehow better than 17.5 sacks 2 years in a row. If they get any more defense than they got last year, they're a playoff team. They're the most dangerous. No one wants to see Joe Burrow, period. He's the best quarterback in the NFL. Then you're talking about the Ravens, and you're talking about everything they do and how they want to dictate to you. And what Aaron Rodgers does, and the reason that I'm talking about him being able to put you in the right play being a great thing, and that being something you want to build on from Bucky Brooks, but also his ability to literally flip things in any situation, is that is the one thing they haven't had. If Pittsburgh could dictate tempo, if Pittsburgh could stay on time and on target, if Pittsburgh could stay ahead of the change, if Pittsburgh could get in a rock fight, Pittsburgh had to have 3, 4, 5, 6 things go right. Now, all things being equal, you're talking about a quarterback battle royale and a reasonable 85% facsimile of Aaron Rodgers versus Lamar Jackson, and everything else in the equation, give me that. A reasonable facsimile of Aaron Rodgers, 85% in Joe Burrow, everything in the equation, give me that shit too.
I love it, man. And I love being on this journey with you as we're now 35 days until week 1 of the NFL season, just 5 weeks as we cross off this Sunday and is now right around the corner. And I do feel like this is going to be a special season. And now we can believe that the Steelers front office understands the mission, and that is to maximize and be opportunistic. Look for great opportunities. They're looking to spend, I don't know, they're adding $30 million salaries to the payroll. They're willing to go there to make this team better. Who's going to be the player to step into that? Once the trade market heats up, Newbear, we can imagine these Steelers are going to take steps to make this roster even better and maximize this opportunity that Aaron Rodgers has given them.
Yeah, I mean, the hashtag here we go crowd, right? At the Knoll Road Times, hashtag here we go. Let's bleep and go. The years on, decades, eons, the entire history of this franchise comes down to belief that our guys and our way of doing things are better than yours and is better than your scheme and your team. And we're going to come in and we're going to punch you in the mouth and we're going to get it done. And, over the course of time, even in playoff games where TJ Watt goes in and peanut punches Mahomes and we go defensive tutty and you go, holy cow, could this really happen? And then you go, whew, the ending of that game, you almost forget how it started. This isn't that, because every weakness, every hole, every opportunity to do so has at the very least had them with their foot on the gas.
Great stuff, man. If you made it to the end with us, thank you so much for your support. Do not be afraid to hit subscribe and hit that bell button so you don't miss our next upload. Until next time, we'll see you on the Knoll Road.